Prior to starting this Defense Capital magazine, he was with Bloomberg and then PTI. And he's also practicing in Delhi High Court and Supreme Court. And he runs this think tank called Law and Society Alliance. And he keeps on talking on various issues on various platforms. He's also part of the managing trustee of this New Delhi-based Center for South Indian Studies. And then next, Mohammad Ujale, he is also very seasoned journalist. He is the founder and editor-in-chief of Tech Observer. And he has worked with Economic Times, Financial Express, and Express Computer. In ET government, he was responsible for overseeing the government policy related issues. And Neha, and she's currently the board member for Federation of Indian Exports. She's the board member, and she's also the owner and promoter of York Print Private Limited, and she's also actively involved in advocating for regional development and policy enhancement issues, and skill development and industrial growth. So that's the brief overall introduction of the guest. And my colleague Rezaul is also present today. Rezaul also is the co-founder of Web3 Assam. So right now today, like broadly, we would try to cover three aspects. One is the security, political instability in neighboring countries, and we would try to understand the geopolitics related issues from Bipindra. And when the policy and governance aspect, we'll try to understand from Mohammad Ujale, and from Neha, we'll try to understand the logistics and infrastructure related issues. So welcome to you all to Northeast India Public Policy Forum. Right now, I would request Mr. Bipindra to start. Please, we would like to know from you the current state of geopolitical affairs in the entire Northeast region and connecting the Indo-Pacific and the Southeast Asian region.
Thank you, Nawa. How much time do we have, each of us? If you can just give us an indication of that, I think I'll restrict to that.
Yeah. Overall, we have 1.5 hour time. So you can take at the beginning, you can take around 15 minutes. You can take. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and it's a pleasure to be on Northeast India Public Policy Forum event today. And I think I have a great panel with Neha and Mohammad Ujale joining me. And thank you for this opportunity once again. And let me begin by stating my own personal view of the Northeast. As a person who was born and brought up in a state called Tamil Nadu, which is deep south of India, for a person like me, or not exactly me, but people from Tamil Nadu look at Northeast as a very remote location. But if you look at a person who was born in, say, Northeast, any of the Northeastern 7 sister states or 8 sister states, if you include Sikkim too into it, I think the Tamil Nadu is the remote area of India, actually. So, I mean, the distances are, almost 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers away from each other. But I would believe that a person Tamil Nadu who thinks that he is the mainland, probably a person from Northeast would think that he is from the mainland. So I think it is a misnomer to call Northeast as remote, and it is very much what you call it as the center of. I think it should be the center of India's, most of its diplomatic affairs, as far as looking at the Eastern Asia and the ASEAN countries concerned. So, let me begin by stating the obvious. India has a look east policy, which was started somewhere in 1992 or somewhere around that time under the P.V. Narasimha Rao government. It was essentially because there was a situation that emerged after the collapse of the USSR, which is the previous avatar of the Russian Federation today. They were a conglomerate of different communist nations in the Eastern European region. And after the collapse of the USSR, there was a huge vacuum as far as India's foreign policy approach is concerned, because we were, seen to be aligned with the USSR, though we had a non-alignment policy, non-alignment movement. We were leading that movement globally as the third front in the global affairs during the Cold War era. But that actually changed in the early 90s, 1991, because of which India had to recalibrate its approach towards its foreign policy, and that led to the Look East policy under P.V. Narasimha Rao, which was only focused on commercial affairs or economic affairs, economic relationship with the ASEAN nations, or East Asian nations, Southeast Asian nations, as you would call it. But 20 years down the line, say almost 30 years down the line, 20 years down the line, somewhere around 2014, when Mr. Narendra Modi came to power and became the Prime Minister, he slightly shifted the policy into Act East policy. So Act East policy essentially means you're going to be doing much more than just look at East Asia, Southeast Asia as a possible partners in commerce and economic affairs. So that was the shift that happened. Essentially, what has happened is we have expanded the scope of this relationship with Southeast Asian nations to also include strategic coordination, strategic affairs coordination, cultural exchanges, and also security relations. It becomes much more wider, in terms of the policy construct itself, geopolitical construct itself for India. So essentially, the shift happened because India was feeling threatened by the Chinese's aggressiveness in the Southeast Asian region, particularly in the South China Sea region, where they started reclaiming territory or highlands which were submerged by water, by filling it with landfills and then making it into an island and converting into a military base. Like a lot of these islands, Paracel Islands and several of the Spratly Islands, and several of them, they started claiming as their own territory, and this kind of became a huge threat. And India was also facing a threat in its northern borders. Of course, we all know that the northeast part of India shares a long border with China, and there was a military threat that was, hanging as a sword over India's head, and that led to this shift in policy. Essentially, prior to the Look East policy, we were looking at the West, or rather, we were facing our policies much more oriented towards, say, Europe and Western nations, but that shifted post to this Cold War era. So, since currently the geopolitical situation is that the world is divided into a multipolarity. When I say multipolarity, during the Cold War era, I mean, just for the common man to understand, there were two major powers: the US-led Western coalition and the USSR-led communist coalition, or socialist coalition, as you would call it. So these two blocks essentially were the powers during the two bipolar powers during the Cold War era that collapsed since the USSR disintegrated, and following which we find that there are multiple powers which are claiming to be a pole in the geopolitics today. It includes China, which is 20 years after the Cold War era. We see that China has emerged as a major power, both economically and also militarily. They are quite powerful at this point in time. And there are middle-level powers like India, Russia, and say other Germany, France, you name all of them. So all of them clubbed together are trying to emerge as one of the poles in the geopolitical order. So that is the reason why the shift has happened. So when you look at, since you asked me about geopolitics, I'll only touch upon that. Maybe others can think of and talk about other issues. So what are the major geopolitical challenges that the region, northeast region of India has, as far as its ability to grow into a epicenter of industrial growth and economic power? regional power within India.
challenge
So
that
what
we
are
have.
the first and foremost geopolitical challenge that I see is of the Chinese aggressiveness in the border areas. We, as I mentioned earlier, we share a long border, particularly in the Arunachal Pradesh region, including if you include Sikkim. I think the distance, the length of the conflict possibility widens actually. There are a lot of vulnerabilities as far as India is concerned, essentially because China has been claiming Arunachal Pradesh entirely as its own. It's about 90,000 square kilometers region. So it's a huge land space, land mass, and it's entirely claimed by China. And of course, I'm sure people who are well read on the subject would know that Mao had mentioned that Tibet is the palm, and there are 5 fingers which are to be integrated with Tibet. And Arunachal Pradesh is one of them, Sikkim is one of them. Then you have Ladakh is one of them. So there are 5 northern states of India which they wanted to integrate. Bhutan is one of them, not necessarily Indian states, but also other countries they wanted to integrate. So there are Arunachal Pradesh is a serious threat as far as Northeast is concerned with regard to Chinese aggressiveness. And you often find that there are a lot of intrusions that happen into the Indian territory while patrolling. Indian forces go and block them. There are skirmishes and clashes that happen, which keeps people keep reporting it. But mind you, I want to warn all the Northeast brothers and sisters who are out there that military aggression over Arunachal Pradesh can happen anytime today. Because, I mean, since we are talking geopolitics, I'm giving you a perspective on this aspect.
Yes.
Xi Jinping is essentially looking at, stamping his mark on history, Chinese history, by becoming the most successful president of communist China. And there are only 2 options that he has, because economy is already going down as far as China is concerned, because there are only 2 options to mark his, place as the the most significant political leader of China after Mao Zedong, that is Taiwan and Arunachal Pradesh. As far as Taiwan is concerned, you have a lot of other big players like the US, which is again a major military and an economic power, which is defending Taiwan and is willing to put all its bets to defend Taiwan on that front. So the only other option Xi Jinping has, if he wants to emerge as the biggest leader in China after Mao Zedong, is Arunachal Pradesh. So there is a huge threat of Arunachal Pradesh. I have mentioned this in several discussions on military affairs in different forums. I'm mentioning it again for the audience of your forum. So the military action by China on Arunachal Pradesh is imminent. Please be wary of it. Please prepare yourselves for that possibility. So that is one aspect of it. The other major security aspect of it that I see is the environmental troubles that China could pose for India. It has constructed huge dams all along the Brahmaputra River, and we have already heard about this flooding situation that could happen in the southern or the downward riparian states like India and Bangladesh, if there is some mischief that China does, whether state-sponsored or some rogue element, bombing those dams. So it could lead to a major environmental concern for all of us. And of course, the water scarcity is also a major threat if they, kind of start diverting the Brahmaputra waters away from the southern riparian states. So that is another major, geopolitical threat or challenge that India faces in the Northeast region. And also we have Myanmar, which is a major neighbor, which is essentially our gateway to the ASEAN nations. As most of you know, most of your audience would know, that the only nation in ASEAN with which India shares a land border, is Myanmar. So, and Myanmar is very, very important for India for various reasons, including cultural affinity that we have with the Myanmar people for centuries together. So, Myanmar is very important. But what is happening today within Myanmar is a major concern for people in the Northeast because there is a huge civil war going on. People in the political analysis space don't describe it as civil war, but I look at it as a civil war because there is an armed struggle going on, and the rebels fighting against the military junta in Napidawa are essentially controlling almost 30% of the Myanmarese landmass as of today. And this is only expanding slowly. In fact, one of the major ASEAN projects that India has is the Kaladan multimodal transport project, which is about $500 million worth of a project. So we are going to be connecting, Kolkata to Sitwe, which is in Myanmar, and it goes on up to, Taiwan and Cambodia. So you can expand it, to all the Southeast Asian nations. This particular project, so it has that kind of a major potential, and it is a major trade route for India at this point in time. But unfortunately, in January 2024, the Sitwe port and the other port, Palitwa port in Myanmar have fallen into the hands of the Arakan army, which is a rebel army, essentially based in the Rakhine province of Myanmar. And also the other major problem from Myanmar for us is the rebels who go and find shelter across the border in Myanmar. So in 2015, we have heard of this military operation conducted with the Indian Army Special Forces against some of the rebels of the NSCN-K, rebels who went and took shelter there after they had attacked the Indian Army convoy in Manipur. So I'm just giving you the specific incident which actually brought out this issue for us. The other issue with Myanmar is that there are almost 80% of the arms and ammunition and weapons that were caught from rebel armed forces in Northeast of the insurgent groups. The arms came from China. So they were actually smuggled into India through Myanmar route. So that is also a major, gun running is a major threat for us. And China is arming some of the insurgents through the Myanmar route. And also the other threat with insurgency is that China is said to be training. I have heard reports from intelligence officials saying that China is actually training some of the Indian rebels in the northeast, in the Yunnan province, which also borders with Myanmar in the southwestern region. So I have 2 more minutes. I'll try and complete it in another 2 minutes because you gave me 15 minutes time. So the other major threat, Bangladesh. In fact, when Nava spoke to me about it, he talked about Bangladesh. But Bangladesh does, since it is the eastern neighbor, I think we need to talk about Bangladesh also. There are 2 issues, or at least 3 issues as far as Bangladesh is concerned. One, and first and foremost, is the illegal immigration that happens from Bangladesh. Almost all northeastern states are affected by this illegal immigration. And you know what happened in Assam for a very long time. There has been a major civil strife in over the immigration issue. And that is going to increase in the years to come, essentially because of environmental issues. Because in Bangladesh, you see what has happened is that the sea erosion is slowly eating away the landmass of Bangladesh. So say by 2050, probably 75% of Bangladesh will be underwater. So what are the people in those regions going to do? They are going to try and find landmass to settle themselves and to find a new life. And where are the landmass going to be found? It is going to be found in India. So this illegal immigrant threat is going to be a major issue. And there will be an exodus of people from Bangladesh into India. And that is a major threat for the northeastern states, unless there is some kind of a arrangement to give them, some sort of how to handle the situation is something the policymakers in India are actually grappling with at this point in time. And I have highlighted this issue at several forums before. So, I think I've almost covered all the, at least the most important issues that I wanted to cover. I will leave it at that at this moment. If there are any questions or any further discussion opportunity, then we'll talk about it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Bipinder. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you. We have more questions. Let me take the initial questions to other panelists also. So from Ujale, I would like to know, like, what are the steps from the state government and central government needs to be taken so that Act East policy can be more effective? What kind of policy reforms or support in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of technology, in terms of governance, what can be done more so that there is more efficiency in terms of development activities in the region? I think you are on mute.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, Nava, thank you so much for having me and organizing this discussion focused on Northeast India as a gateway to Southeast Asia, opportunities and challenges under the Act East policy. And as the previous speaker spoke very eloquently about the fact as to how the security apparatus and geopolitical situation is spanning out in Southeast Asia region, and especially in Myanmar, and the impact of China that could have on our relationship with this neighboring country. So from a policy perspective, and especially from a perspective of promoting Northeastern region as a hub for economic growth, and maybe as a linkage to reaching out to the ASEAN countries, I think some of the fundamental things, if I discount for a time being what is really happening in Myanmar, which is really, really important, because unless you have a situation where security is put in place, you have a relationship which is very cordial, development cannot actually take place, or even the developmental activity will be very limited. So both in the Myanmar and the other region, we'll have to have a situation wherein things are normalized. For a time being, if we consider, let's say we discount what is really happening there, but from a government perspective as to what government can do in order to support some of the thing that is being done. As Mr. Bipendra earlier spoke about two of the project, especially around the Kaladan multimodal transit project he mentioned about. And I think if you look at on a broader term, infrastructure development is key. Unless you have the connectivity and infra in place, you will not be able to do any high-end transaction. So enhancing the road, rail, and air connectivity, I think air connectivity is not a challenge. So, for example, project like India-Myanmar, Thailand trilateral highway and the Kaladan multimodal transit project, I think both these projects are very important. But at the same time, these are very good initiative. But what government has to do is that we need to implement these projects on a very expeditious way, especially focusing on the security and having the stable partnership with Myanmar. Because Myanmar will be the gateway, as Mr. Bipendra said, for other countries, especially our South Asian neighbors. Second is that once you have the infrastructure in place, which is connecting and which is creating a bridge between the nations, then you need to integrate the local enterprise. Ultimately, once you have the infra in place, who is going to benefit? Who will be doing the business? Obviously, these will the local enterprises. So we need to integrate the local enterprises. So for example, you have startups, you have entrepreneur. So what the government can do, if you broadly look at, we can replicate some of the things that we are doing internally in that partnership. Like the government could provide, subsidies, and we can also facilitate easier cross-border trade through regulatory reform and support for digital payment infrastructure. Because if you look at what India has been doing, especially with the help of UPI, We have created an online payment platform which is quite unique in the world, wherein transaction is happening on the go, the settlements are happening on the go, and the central government has been pushing both UPI as well as if you look at the Minister of IT's one project, which is they have created umbrella under the digital public goods infrastructure, where the government has created like UPI as a technology platform. They have created GSTN as a technology platform. They have created Aadhaar as a technology platform. So the point is that India is trying to promote these technological platform in Southeast Asia, especially with the ASEAN countries, so that actually they are able to imbibe our technology and we are able to actually help them. So I think the collaboration with ASEAN members to establish, also, if you look at internally, what is really happening in some of the region like Bangalore, Hyderabad and Noida, to promote businesses and to promote a particular area, what government has done. Government has created SEZ, for example, a special economic zone. Those special economic zone are quite attractive for big businesses, for investment purposes. So if you really want to create an atmosphere and create an ecosystem wherein the business should be investing, I mean, until unless a private companies comes into the picture, you might not see a great improvement in terms of the economic relationship, right? So therefore, in terms of pushing the Northeast policy and having the Northeast policy, Act-East policy impact on a broader level, even with ASEAN countries, can we create some level of framework where the SEZ kind of thing could be created under this framework, which could actually attract both the companies in the northeastern region, including Assam and other states, as well as the other participating nation via the Myanmar. So I think, and there actually you can utilize some of the things that we have learned as a country, especially in the public-private partnership model, because there are some of the models which are very successful, which we have seen quite successfully, especially in the road infrastructure development in our country. Most of the PPP models are quite outstanding and they have delivered. So not all of them have delivered, but at least we can learn some good thing from PPP model, and we try to rope in both government and private organization. Also, what I personally feel that if you really want to promote business and if you really want to promote relationship, you need to have a very great collaboration between different economies. And as Mr. Bibendra earlier mentioned, that with Myanmar, we have 100 years of relationship. There are cultural ties, there are other things. Though the situation right now is a bit fragile because of what is really happening there in terms of the civil conflict. But what we really need to do is that we need to rope in our educational institutions, especially, our university should be aligned with industry need by offering, let's say, a specialized program in logistic, agriculture technology, in digital marketing. And those things could be focused on a customized way in terms of the requirement of the ASEAN market. What is the requirement of those markets and how under the Act-East policy, those could be fulfilled, and how the state like Assam and Northeastern region could become a hub or could become a gateway of those things. Second, both the state and central government. Central has been pushing also the state government. They should introduce some sort of tax break and possibly offer some level of grant for startups in cross-border trade and logistics. Especially when you actually incentivize any activity, you are likely to see a lot of interest of the industry. The classical example is Sikkim. I mean, they had a program wherein they offered some incentive to pharma company, and you would have noticed that some of the big pharma companies has gone to Sikkim. They have set up their shop. So incentivization of the activity is really important. And as earlier mentioned, that industry collaboration is also very, very important. And but in above all, if you look at also from India's perspective as to what best we can offer, what is so unique we have for this region. Ultimately, if the geopolitical situation is in right place, if the Myanmar things from a security perspective is stabilized, how are you going to extend the Act East policy, which was envisaged way back? How will you do that? So obviously, the collaboration between the countries will become very important. Also, the incentivization will become very important. We need to also understand in these ASEAN market, what are their requirements? What are some of the items which we have in the Northeast region, which can fulfill their demand? So if you look at Northeastern region, I mean, it's not only the agriculture or tourism that the region is known for. I mean, there are a lot of things happening from IT sector as well. So even if you broadly look at, I mean, the Northeast is well known for the organic produce, and a lot of people becoming health conscious and a lot of wellness coming into the picture. I think those organic kind of thing could be processed. I mean, those could be done based on the market study, and we can actually figure out as to what we can do. But in the end, I would like to just emphasize, policy is just one part of a broader umbrella. What is really needed is that all the support that you need to provide to the industry, to the startup, you need to have a stable relationship with your neighbor from a security perspective. Because if you look at the Bangladesh, in Bangladesh, you had a very stable government for almost around 12 to 13 years, 15 years. And during those times, a lot of economic development has happened. The relationship with India was very stable. We were investing a lot. But as soon as the relation goes haywire, you will see a broader impact on these. So what we really need to do, that we need to put in place a framework, especially around the smaller things. I mean, just having a policy is not going to help us. Let's say even why can't Northeast actually do the same thing for the other state in India? Why in an IT sector, for example, Andhra Pradesh, Hyderabad, Telangana, and Karnataka is way ahead of other states. Why Northeast as a region cannot think of as an IT hub going beyond that? Those could only happen when we understand ourselves quite well, when we are able to put in place, invest in skill development, for example. I mean, we are talking about the high-end technology, we are talking about a lot of things, but we also need to think from a skill development perspective. The kind of skill which is needed in today's time, especially if you look in the technology space. I mean, the AI, machine learning, blockchain, all of these are highly proprietary technology, right? And those are actually going to create a lot of jobs. Those are going to be an integral part of supply chain management for a lot of cross-border trade. So how do we skills our youth? How do we skills our government officials? So I think a broader contour of everything, wherein as a region, if we are able to create more value into the ecosystem, I'm sure the policy will deliver. And somehow the government, both central government, the state government, has put in place some of the things in place. And there is a right intention, no doubt about that. But I think the cross-border infrastructure development is a key. I mean, the security is a key. I mean, especially from a stability perspective is a key. We need to integrate local enterprise, for sure. And we need to improve the skill development of our own people, the kind of product and services we provide. It should be the world class, I think. And then there should be the right sets of incentivization. Some of the things that we have done in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, in Delhi, in terms of promoting businesses, those success stories as a policy we can replicate in Northeastern region, and Northeastern region can take those things to the ASEAN nation and push forward some of the development work. So I think that way it will create a conducive and holistic environment of a development. And if we are able to put in place all those things, I think we can expect a better way of uh, economically hinged relationship, because once you are economically dependent on each other, and then the likelihood of a good relationship and there's a skirmish in terms of the security situation subsided. So the more economic dependency will, I think, strengthen a lot of things in a side way. Now,
Yeah, thank you so much, Ujale, for your detailed, very extensive explanation in terms of what are the scopes in the northeastern region, what all needs to be done in the policy perspective. So now we'll move to Neha Mehra. Neha, my question would be for, like, what are the kind of specific tax related challenges or subsidy related issues scenario in terms of supply chain, in terms of producing and supplying the products to other regions, other states or ASEAN countries? If you can throw some light on this, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Nava. Thank you, everyone present. We have had some very enriching points from both the speakers. And I feel so happy because we are sitting in Northeast, and it really delights us to know that that people in the other part of the country are also actually able to catch hold of the nerve of the problem that we are facing in the region. My deliberation comes more from a practical point of view. Since we are here, we are into the industry. And one of the major challenges that we see is that Northeast is a totally landlocked region. So logistically, it is very difficult to send or receive products in this part of the country. And when we talk about the tax part, so Northeast has almost 14 land ports and 2 ICD ports. Now the issue is that majority of these ports, they are non-ICD ports, which means that they are non-electronic ports. Now, when any material is being sent through the non-electronic ports, any of the export schemes that are granted by the government or any of the export or trade subsidies that are granted by the government, they cannot be availed if the port is a non-electrical port. So that is one of the major challenge that Northeast faces as a trade partner to the ASEAN nations. The second major problem with Northeast ports is that all kind of trade of products is not allowed from all kind of ports. So I can only send or receive specific kind of products from one port and not from another port. Now we need to do a deeper study into what is the logic behind this. But again, this is the major challenge that is being faced by the industry and traders in the Northeast region. Also, till now, we have been a very, very agricultural dominant region. Like Mr. Ujale rightly said, that we have a huge scope for organic produce. We have a huge scope for perishable goods. But the issue that we face is that there is no proper infrastructure to store these goods, to pack these goods, and to send these goods from Northeast to other Asian nations. So if there's no proper cold storage chain, or if there is no proper warehousing facilities for these products, then we are losing on the major part of trade from Northeast. Because we are still an agrarian region, we are yet to move into an industrial region. Then we don't, in Northeast, one of the major challenges is that we still lack a proper logistics part. Now, in 2022, the government of Assam had actually introduced Assam logistics and warehousing policy. But this policy still is awaiting to be come into force because the notification has not been received. So, apart from this also, there are a lot of local policies, like Mr. Ujale very rightly pointed, that we should expand on the service industry as well. Now, Northeast is a region where you'll find major speakers of English language. And to tap this potential, there was actually a Northeast India BPO policy that had come in force before pre-COVID in 2020. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, the policy did not pick up, and there has been no review or revision of the policy. So again, we lose out on that front where we can actually increase the service exports to the ASEAN markets and even beyond that. Then the government has very beautifully come up with some FTAs, especially targeting the ASEAN countries. So we have a SAFTA, we have SEPA with Japan, and we have even gone up to Australia where we have signed an ECTA. Now, all these agreements, they basically are looking at promoting free trade, reducing trade barriers, and making the business processes easy. Now, the issue with these policies is also that when it comes to Northeast specifically, the geography of this region and the produce of this region is entirely different from rest of the countries. So it is imperative that a deep study be done with regard to Northeast and tailor-made policies be brought in. Also, initially, when the Northeast Industrial Policy had been newly launched in the region, there was a logistics subsidy. There was a freight subsidy that was being provided. But as the policy got revised again, that subsidy has been entirely taken off. Now, we need to understand that there are geographical challenges here, there are logistical challenges here, and just to strike off one of the major incentives being given to the business owners of this region and to the traders of this region, it hugely impacts the business, it hugely impacts the exports and the trade. So these are the few points where major challenges are being faced. However, there is an rail line coming up which will run between Agartala and Akhora. Now, once this rail line starts, we can expect major improvement in the trade between India and Bangladesh, because this is going to be a direct goods channel between both the nations. Apart from that, like Mr. Bipindra and Mr. Ujale rightly said, that the trilateral highway, that's going to be a game changer for the region. Also, it is imperative that we look at the inland waterways. Now, we do have ports in Assam, which can take materials and people from a local port up till Chittagong in Bangladesh. Now, we need to explore that from Chittagong, if we can increase the coverage to the entire ASEAN. So currently, the Sagarmala project is looking into this aspect, but there's a lot of study and a lot of mapping that needs to happen. So these are majorly the ground challenges, like the reality, the nexus between the policy and the reality that I'm trying to highlight here. And we need to study and understand how these challenges can be taken up.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you so much for your insightful and from your practical experience that you have explained in detail. So coming back to while she was speaking about connecting with Bangladesh and trilateral highway with Myanmar and Thailand. So political stability is something very much important when there is progress needs to happen in this particular infrastructural development areas. So coming back to Bipindra again, what role Indian government can play so that there is political stability in neighboring countries, even if there is no particular party that they want them to be in power, but they are not in power, but there is a mechanism that they can work with the other parties also who are in power, so that the economic cooperation and activity can continue in a very fluid way. So what can the central government can do so that there is more economic engagement and cooperation irrespective of the government or the party in power?
Thank you, Nava. Thank you for this very important question, actually. There are two neighbors in the Northeast region, that have had some sort of a civil strife in the region, or rather a proper civil strife in the recent years. One is Myanmar and Bangladesh. So I mean, I think in 5 years or 4 years ago, I think the civilian government in Myanmar was overthrown by the military junta, who kind of recaptured power there. See, the Indian stand and policy on both Bangladesh and Myanmar is that we will be more than happy to work with any government that comes to power in these two nations, because both these nations are very critical, and we have always followed a hands-off approach as far as the internal politics is concerned. So when Aung San Suu Kyi came to power, we cooperated with her, and has had a very good relationship with India, and we have always supported her democracy movement, not though directly, but indirectly we have stood with her in our democracy movement that she did in Myanmar. And the military junta also has been very good with India. I mean, it's not that we have had any problem with any of these two powers that have been fighting for a rule in Myanmar. So I think that hands-off approach is possibly the best approach to handle political situations in the neighborhood, precisely because India being a big nation, we are looked at as big brother. The big brother, the syndrome comes into play, where people look at us as in the neighborhood, look at us as people who are interfering in their internal affairs too much, and we are kind of putting our finger into their pie. That sort of a attitude emerges when we start interfering in internal affairs or doing any political maneuvering within those countries. So I believe, but Myanmar, I think if the rebels, there are more than 10 groups which are fighting in different locations in Myanmar. So how are they going to come together, even if they capture power, overthrowing the junta? How are they going to rule? How are they going to, that's a major, instability crisis that we see at this point in time. So I hope it is either the military junta or Aung San Suu Kyi's civilian administration. One of these is the best possible option for India, and I believe that should prevail. I don't mind, as a personal opinion, I don't mind the military junta prevailing over the rebels at this point in time. As far as Bangladesh is concerned, I think what I've known is that when we say of unknown men interfering in other countries like Canada and other places, surprisingly in Bangladesh, India has not had a play in the political game that has unfolded in the recent years, in the recent months at least. And the fall of Hasina government is a major setback for India. That's as Ujale rightly pointed out, it's a major setback for India, because we have always had a great relationship with Hasina, and not so friendly relationship with the BNP. So that's the sort of situation that we are in. But fortunately, now we have a as all-party or a interim government of UNIS, and India has said that they will work with them. So even in Bangladesh, I think our approach should be that we will be ready to work with anybody who comes to power through the proper democratic process. So that should be our policy as far as both these countries is concerned. And especially in Bangladesh, you see, or even Myanmar, I will turn the big brother syndrome on its head and say that we are the elder brother. In a family, in an Indian tradition, you find that the elder brother is very protective of all his younger siblings. He takes care of them, takes a lot of interest in their welfare, in their growth, in their economic and social status growth and all that. So I think probably India should play that elder brother role than a big brother role. Instead of putting a finger in the other person's food, you should rather be more than happy to serve more on their plate so that they become better and better. And I think this Act East policy, one of the most important aspect of it is capacity building. I think capacity building is a very important pillar of Act East policy, and that is where I think India should focus. We should try and build the capacities of all the Southeast Asian nations, and also both Myanmar and Bangladesh being our South Asian neighbor. I think that is what we should do, and I agree with Ujale there when he sort of mentions about the kind of contribution that India can make in the digital public interface, infrastructure and all that. So I think that is policy that India is offering every other friendly nation, African nations, even an SCO meet that happened, summit that happened in Islamabad on October 15 and 16. India has put forth this idea of sharing the digital infrastructure and digital inclusion plans of India with other nations. That is a big way forward for India. And we should focus on capacity building, friendly relationship with whoever comes to rule the nations there, and also try to ensure that we have a good play as far as economic relationship and cultural relationship with those states is concerned, and keep our hands off all internal politics in these nations. That's the way forward.
I think one good thing the India is teaching the entire world is that how to remain sovereign and how to have a multi-pronged approach, and then non-alignment are the things that Indian diplomacy is teaching the entire world. I think how to remain multilateral in terms of foreign policy approach. So I think that our neighboring countries, irrespective of the government, will also understand this, and gradually there will be an alignment in terms of understanding with them, in terms of working together as neighboring countries. That's a positive thing that I believe that it will work. There will be some mechanism that will work out, and will definitely work on it. So now, Avijit, are you there? Avijit?
Yes.
Yeah. Avijit. Avijit is someone who is running a startup, and his startup is into blockchain. So I would like to have his perspective. So Vijay, I would like to have your perspective how what kind of role the blockchain or overall technology can play in terms of developmental activities, in terms of bringing transparency, in terms of governance mechanism in the entire region. So please put across your point of view.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Novada, for inviting me to this very interesting panel, and I am honored to be here. And also, I've heard all the speakers, and it is a very interesting place for me to put my thoughts, because I mostly come from a technology perspective. Of course, it is so interesting to know and hear about the socio-political or geopolitical landscape of Northeast, because that is the boundary conditions in which any technology, for that matter, has to operate. So, if we look at the history of the world,
Avijit, just briefly, if you can also mention about your startup LW3, so other panelists would also be like to know. Especially Ujale, because he comes from that industry. So if you can brief what all you have done recently.
Okay. So I am the founder of a startup called LW3 Private Limited. So what we do is we are building the product passports on blockchain. As you might understand, like human beings like us have a passport for travel, for our verification. Similarly, I'm building some similar passports, which is mandated by European Union under their digital product passports. I've taken a cue from them, and I think that is going to be followed by a lot of other countries, because, as you know, usually in terms of regulatory matters, Europe is always the front runner. And so essentially what I do is I put a simple non-clonable QR code or something like RFID or NFC for a product to tell its story, true story, so that mostly the counterfeiting, or for that matter, the provenance of the origin of the products it reflects to the end consumers. And recently, we've been selected by the European Commission and also the Principal Scientific Advisor, Government of India, for a matchmaking event. We are one of the 3 startups selected from India for EV battery technologies. So I am building India's first battery passport, EV battery passport, which essentially will go into every, 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler, primary, secondary EV battery, or even for storage batteries for that matter, so that their entire life cycle can be tracked and the goal of critical mineral sovereignty can be achieved. And I'm not just doing in the EV mobility sector, I'm also entering into the solar, because there's a lot of energy storage, and also it is extending to electronic goods as well, because there's a huge mandate for recycling electronic goods. Because it's a lot of hazard which goes on to the landfills, and year after year, we are only in the number of electronic products for that matter is increasing. So that is essentially what I do, and I think blockchain is the best thing that can tackle this problem, because of, as you know, it is of its nature of immutability, its nature of transparency, and it brings unparalleled power of finance into the supply chain, which traditional supply chain or Web2 or financial institutions cannot do. And that is where I'm trying to build this solution. So having said that, I also run part of an accelerator in Northeast India. It's called NRL Ideation. I ran the program for almost now 3 years, and from that I have interacted with most of the startups of Northeast, and I'm associated to other incubators as well, like the Nest or Netfee for that matter, or Sidbi. So all the entrepreneurial landscape in Northeast, I have a close proximity. In that, I also take personal interest in startup, because that has been my way of life since I graduated from college. And I can tell you for sure the things are changing. We are now building technologies like AI. We are building emerging technologies like blockchain from Northeast. And of course, we have as many of the panelists said, we have our core competence in, of course, agricultural products, because of the huge diversity in flora and fauna in Northeast. It is a hotbed of agricultural products. But of course, we have not been able to much forge in that way because of the lack of certifications and, of course, lack of infrastructure for certifying the organic state of the products, and also the influx of a lot of chemical fertilizers into the fueling the rising demand for producers, because there is a human capital which is increasing at an accelerated rate due to infiltration, due to immigration, illegal immigration and stuff. So that is a problem we are dealing with. But at the same time, I think there is a hope of light, especially in the sense, if you look back at the history of the countries like Japan, or for that matter, Germany, for that matter, when they converted from a state of hyperinflation or Great Depression into something valuable. They started their economies. They kickstarted their economy through technology. For example, post World War, Japan was reeling under a lot of economic stress. There were lack of jobs. There was no industrialization by that. But then they kickstarted the manufacturing, and the likes of Toyotas and the likes of the Hondas, and those people were born. And I think it was a very effective cocktail of government policy making, and also at the same time participation of the people, like the entrepreneurial spirit of the people. So that same thing could be also told about Germany, because they started the manufacturing revolution in all the, I think if I'm still not wrong, 1 out of 4 luxury vehicles or advanced over-engineered vehicles are still made by Germany. Of course, now the Chinese have come in a big way in the EV sector. Of course, and that strengthens my belief that if we can, as a Northeast in India, if we can at least tap on one technology, we shouldn't be good in hundreds of technologies, because at least we should be strong or build that capacity in one technology. And because you see, IT, if you talk about Bangalore, it started with Web2 when there was outsourcing of Web2 technologies, and I think Bangalore and Hyderabad, they captured it way back in 2000. And now, as we are in this era of blockchain and Web3, so this is another opportunity. And I think in today, if you see the landscape of India overall, still there is not much happening in the Web3 space. Whereas countries, even developing or underdeveloped countries like Venezuela or Brazil, or of course Brazil is developing in the sense, but there are also countries like Nigeria, Algeria, and these countries, they are trying to adopt Bitcoin, right? Because blockchain fundamentally has a proposal to transform the wrongs of technology which have happened over the period, over the years. Because you see, there is essentially a lack of trust. For example, now we are having this wave of AI. Now already it is causing disruption, right? You don't know what photo has been, is real and what is fake, and people have lost trust because of technology itself. Now, political campaigns, a lot of this is also affected by fake images, fake comments, and bots running all around the social media outlets. And it's also so blockchain has this potential to solve this forever, because it brings accountability, it brings transparency, and especially where places which have lost the financial revolution 1.0, places like many places in Africa, many places in Latin America, they are now adopting, for that matter, Bitcoin, or the power of Bitcoin, or the blockchain based protocols, because that gives an unparalleled you can say upper hand over traditional finance, and it is a chance to grow their economy in a different way altogether. So I think here in this case, I would just like to maybe understand we need some technology in Northeast which is core competent to it. And I think we have a good talent pool from across the world. And also we need cross-pollination. We need companies to come to Guwahati. We need from Bangalore, we need startups to join Guwahati or Manipur for that matter, and do develop the capabilities, the skill set, create jobs, create employment, and have a cumulative net export for that matter of services. And since all you need is a computer, then you don't need $1 million or $10 million, $100 million capex. All you need is a laptop to create value. And I think this is where things get really interesting, because necessity is the mother of invention. And I think your scarcity, the scarcity of this region, right, which is capital for simple understanding, can be single-handedly removed if we can develop a computer or IT or Web3, any kind of technology for that matter in this place. So with this, I would like to just conclude and say we have hope, but we need cooperation between the government policies, and also we need participation from the people. And also we need enablers. Like, for example, in this case, Navoda has been an excellent example of how it is not just the startup and the government and the businesses. It's also people like Navoda who are enablers. They are the linkers that provide linkages for the solutions to be adopted by the government, by the businesses, or this network, which is also very important. So I think thank you so much, Navoda, for bringing me here. And I think I would love to have conversations with all the panelists in the future. And maybe I think I already have met Neha ma'am. on a different occasion a couple of times, and it is again refreshing to meet here. And maybe we have a lot of work in front of us to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you. That's why we have started this policy-related discussion. We have been investing this. We have this another organization called Northeast Angels Network. So where we are trying to invest in the startups of the Northeastern region through the angels. So the Sheikh Rezaul here, he is also the co-founder. So while working on this, we also understood that there are a lot of policy-related issues that we need to discuss. So that's why we have started this platform, Northeast India Public Policy Forum, wherein we want to discuss various aspects of policy matters and what are the challenges, opportunities, and involve more and more people from the industry, from startup, from government, from policy side, so that there is collaboration and work together for the betterment of the region. So while Abhijit was mentioning this, Ujale, do you have any thought on this? Would you like to add some point? Because
just couple of things. I think Abhijit spoke quite eloquently, especially on the role of technology, and he emphasized emerging technologies like blockchain, and as to how the Bitcoin and crypto technology is going to change the way finance happen across the world. And some of the region, like especially Brazil, Nigeria, UAE, they are adopting and they are making part of those technology an integral part of their transaction system. Also, earlier he mentioned about as to how the blockchain could be utilized for creating more trust, especially into the system. So if you look at from supply chain management perspective, at a different level, both for the silicon and for other, the security becomes really, really very important. And there actually blockchain could play a very important role. Also, some of the pharma company in our country, they are also trying to utilize this technology in order to ensure that the bogus and product should be eliminated, and the people should only have a better visibility. Whatever they are buying is actually produced by the company. And broadly, if you look at some of the state governments, they have tried to utilize blockchain technology in order, especially on land record management. Telangana and some of them have been actually trying to do some experiment here and there. But I think the major push for a blockchain technology will come from the fact when government passes a financial rule wherein actually they made the blockchain technology an integral part of the process. Why it has not been able to become an integral part of the financial system? Because you have the financial rule which says that the control has to be in the government. In blockchain world, you can't have one party having a control on entire ecosystem. So that is the back forth is happening between the between government and the innovator in technology space. So I think a lot of thing is happening, a lot of thing will happen. But when we look at Northeast perspective, as Mr. Bipinder and Ms. Neha earlier mentioned, but so I would like to just re-emphasize again for especially from what economic engagement that India can do in order to have a better say in ASEAN, improving its relationship, and also ensuring that the Northeastern region is able to create more products, services, and able to sell it to the ASEAN region and to other part of India. First and foremost is the bilateral and multilateral cooperation. I think you need to strengthen your diplomatic and security ties. No doubt about that. If you have a political stability, if you have a good relationship, then a lot of things will actually fly out. And then, I mean, there are already forums like ASEAN India Strategic Partnership Forum, and then there are regional organization like you have ARF and all, which provide a platform for India to actually do diplomatic effort there. And then also proactively, we have to play diplomacy. And as Mr. Bipinder earlier mentioned, that India has taken a quite good approach in terms of not actually interfering in the internal matter of these two nations, Myanmar and Bangladesh, which is really, really very important. And I think that approach is perfectly fine. We have to show that we are there to actually help them, we are there to enable them. And as Ms. Neha mentioned, that though the trilateral highway that India is working on is perfectly fine, but some route which already exists, especially in the Chetgaon in Bangladesh, can be extended to other ASEAN region. I think those could be explored. Some of the ongoing project, I think we can expedite those ongoing projects. But again, those will be subject to what is the security condition on the ground. Because in this present condition in Myanmar, you might not be able to take any physical infrastructure project. And once the security is stabilized, you are able to work on the existing project. I think the government can look at exploring some new corridor in terms of having, some sort of investment to find out a newer way of actually engagement. Then we can also look at, under the Act East policy, to have a trade in negotiation, something that we have done with, let's say, a very lucrative engagement that we have with Mauritius. We have recently signed with UAE. So once we are able to stabilize something on the ground, possibly we look at ASEAN from that perspective also. As I earlier mentioned, that a special economic zone is really, really very important. I mean, companies like Dell and all has come to India. They have put their shop. These are very big companies. Most of them are in a special economic zone. They need actually incentive support. And incentive support is something that really excites companies. And then you create a local infrastructure. But all of this required a lot of physical activity and a lot of investment. But one area where India has already done fantastic work, we have a lot of command on the in this particular space, which is software development, which is technology export. So if you look at the kind of work that Software Technology Parks of India has done since its establishment in 1991, I mean, the software export from India has grown like anything. Now we have companies like Infosys, TCS, Mahindra's, L&T and all, and Mindtree. They are actually going out and working SCL in a lot of different countries and providing services. So what I'm trying to tell you that the physical infrastructure investment, all of these are a structural thing. It will take time, and there are a lot of things that has to happen on the ground. But in the digital space, India has done a lot of good things, and we already have some successful initiative in place. I think especially we need to focus from a digital trade infrastructure perspective. Something that we have done already in our country, especially from a digital public infrastructure perspective, from e-commerce platform that we have been. For example, you have the government e-marketplace. Now, government is also building ONDC, Open Network for Digital Commerce. I mean, once finalized, it is going to do the kind of work that UPI has done. They will do the same thing for e-commerce space. So what we need to do, we need to pack all of these things in a marketing form as a product. And via the Act East policy, Act East initiative, and maybe empowering our Northeastern region and becoming a gateway for these products. And possibly we can start actually pushing these products with the help of Minister of IT, Minister of External Affairs, and maybe we can create some local body in Northeastern region where we can actually try to explore the physical, the cultural, physical, and other relationship that we have with all of these are nearby neighbor, and start actually pushing our digital product. And once, why digital product is important, it gives you lots of leeway. It gives you a lot of visibility, the kind of visibility that you can't imagine, whether you are there physically or not. But if your digital infra is there, you have the visibility actually. In today's, the 5G and 6G space, the biggest fight the Western and the Chinese are 5G is they don't want actually the Huawei technology to get implemented anywhere in the world, in the Western nation, because what really happened? Once their technology is there, they will have access, they will have visibility as to what is really happening. So 2G, 3G, up to the 4G, these are proprietary technology by Nokia and Ericsson. That means it has a better, from a Western perspective, they have the better leeway and understanding in terms of getting into your system. But in 5G, let's say the Huawei is able to implement across different regions, so the China will have a better understanding. What I'm trying to tell you, whatever the IT product we have, I think we need to push cross-border, and we push in a way that where we help our neighboring nation in terms of becoming digitally savvy and possibly create their digital nation in a more broader way. And last but not the least, I think tourism, education, India can play also very important role, because our education system is slightly or comparatively better compared to our neighboring nation. Especially our medical education and technical education is slightly higher. So there are a lot of influx happening from African countries, from Afghanistan. So maybe we can explore those positive things that we have in order to bridge our relationship with this country and push our product and our businesses, our people there. Also, we need to engage more with the diaspora. I think that India has been doing quite often. So if we put all of these things together, these are organic activity. It will take some time, but I think tech is one space where you don't have to invest a lot. If you have a framework in place, and if that framework is going to honestly deliver to a party, and if you are able to create a trust in your digital system, people will adopt to it. And nations like China, they are already too much entrenched in Bangladesh. In Pakistan, for example, some of the markets where Americans are not there, because their products are very cheap. I mean, their router and switches are way cheap than Cisco's and all. So people, especially wherein there is a budget constraint, those would like to actually adopt that. So can we create the digital umbrella and something around it and push it, and wherein we have a lot of different economical as well as different leeway. So I think Northeast, from that perspective, as a ground soldier for those activity of our nation, can play a very important role.
Thank you, Zale. Thank you so much. It was very insightful, the points that you are raising. I wish someone from the government would have been there here today in the discussions. We'll request them to be part of our discussion next time. But again, coming back to Neha, please add more points. Please give me more perspective, more in detail, what you believe, what needs to be done in terms of overall logistics and development activities.
So I feel that we almost have 9 FTAs with the surrounding nations and the ASEAN countries. And these agreements basically aim at reducing the trade barriers and to ease the trade. But what we need to increase the scope of these FTAs and also include aspects like services and technology. Secondly, no matter how great FTAs we have, until and unless our internal policies are well made, are tailor made, specifically with regard to the Northeast, only then it will be easier for us to navigate through the ASEAN nations. Now, I would like to give you a very small example. We have the current foreign trade policy. Now, the foreign trade policy in one of its points says that any product being traded with Bhutan will not get the benefit of drawback. Now, drawback is one of the government incentives. Now, my question is that why will the drawback will not be allowed? Now, and the specific pointer to is any land trade that happens between Bhutan and India, the drawback will not be allowed. Now, Northeast is completely landlocked. Bhutan is completely landlocked. There is no sea route. So that means there will be no benefit to any of the industry which are trading with Bhutan. So I'm just highlighting this point to elaborate on the issue that policies are usually made on a generic level, which caters to the entire country. But since we are looking at making Northeast as a gateway to all the ASEAN nations, we need very, very specific and tailor-made policies for this region. So that is one of the biggest feedback that I would like to bring on the table. And secondly, when it comes to Act East, so our government has very efficiently not only covered the regions that are around us, but we have gone as far as Australia. And the ECTA that has been signed with the Australia is a very, very comprehensive one, because that is also including education, that is also including transfer of trade, that is also including introduction of new technology when it comes to agricultural products. So these are some of the aspects that we need to look in other FTAs as well.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you so much. Again, when Neha was mentioning about Australia, now another point that comes to my mind is Quad. When we speak about Quad, Bipindra is the right person. You want to give some inputs, any last thoughts on this particular topic? When we are speaking about Indo-Pacific as well these days, not only ASEAN, covering the entire region.
Yeah, thank you, Nava. I will just add to what Abhijit, excellent points, Abhijit. I really loved your presentation. Ujale and Neha, all three. I will just add a few points which has come to my mind as they were conversing, and I'll also touch upon Quad specifically as you asked. First and foremost, what has happened in the last few years, or at least in the last decade, that I know. You have these very special infrastructure schemes that have been formulated by the government very specifically. Like, for example, there is this Northeast Special Infrastructure Development Scheme. So they're going to be spending about 8,000 crore rupees, between 2022 and 2026, which is a 4-year period. That is about 2,000 crore every year annually. That's the kind of investment that the government is willing to make. And there is also this Northeast Road Development Scheme. There are about 72 roads that are going to be built in Northeast in the coming years. All these will facilitate commerce and trade and connectivity, which is very important for the Northeast to flourish, and for us to have this Act East policy to really succeed. So and that's about rupees 2,500 crore expenditure that India is going to do. Apart from roads in Northeast, it is under that infrastructure development scheme. Look at education. I mean, since we are all talking about technology and stuff like that, there are about 6 NITs in Northeast today, and there is one IIT and one IIM in Shillong. So what I mean to say is that there is a pool of talent that is already available within Northeast, and an educational opportunity that is available, that I think we need to maximize to do what Abhijit rightly pointed out. I agree with him. Pick a technology and start working on it. I think that's the way to go. So that will be the uniqueness of Northeast and its contribution to the entire Indian economy and the tech space. So that, I think, is a very valid point that Abhijit made. Natural resources. 34% of India's waters is in the Northeast. Can anybody imagine this? So, how do we use this water resource that is available? Hydropower, and almost 40% of hydropower comes from Northeast. India's hydropower comes from Northeast. So you have a huge contribution to make for this Act East policy as a region, and we have. I mean, I won't say you. We have a major contribution to make as far as their tourism, agriculture, all that has been covered by others. So I will not touch upon that. So Udan scheme, there are currently 16 locations where there is air connectivity, including Zero, which is one of the most, the northeast of region, northeast of Northeast region. So even in Zero, we have a, ALG, Advanced Landing Ground, which is operating helicopters these days. So there is a lot of effort that is going on in the last few years as far as the focus has shifted. I mean, when I opened my remarks, I said for a person from Tamil Nadu, Northeast was remote, and for a person from Northeast, Tamil Nadu is remote. But today that remoteness is disappearing.
Yes.
We are actually now, the entire landmass of India is becoming one single mainland unit. Okay, even
Right.
the island nations are coming together today. So bridges are being built. I mean, we have this Azarika bridge that is the longest bridge in India that has been built in the northeast. So there is a lot of development that is going on. As Ujali rightly pointed out, there is potential that I think we need to tap on. I believe that it is possible. Definitely, it's possible, despite all the challenges that we are facing currently today. And apart from the Indian government's push on facilitating infrastructure, they are also providing capital incentive schemes. I think there is a scheme called as Unnati scheme that the government has introduced in earlier this year, 2024 scheme that they have introduced for providing capital incentives, for also providing performance-related, PLI schemes, incentive scheme, performance-linked incentive scheme, and all that.
Yes.
That they have introduced under this Unnati scheme. So there is an opportunity that we as people from the Northeast need to capture and move forward. I understand capital infusion is a major challenge, and probably that is where the government needs to work on providing credit. I agree with that point that Neha made and Ujale made on this. And coming to Quad specifically, see, Quad originally has had a what do you call it, as a non-military perspective when it was formed. It got revived in the recent years, and India is a major part of Quad. Australia is another major part of Quad. Japan is a part of Quad. Neha mentioned about this 9 FTAs that we have signed with, with all the ASEAN nations. But let me tell you, it's not just with the ASEAN nations, but we have actually extended this Act East policy to Australia, New Zealand, and also with Japan and South Korea. So 4 more nations have joined our Act East policy. East Asia is now becoming, and the Southern Pacific region is also becoming part of the Act East policy today, and that is where Quad becomes very important. And now it is taking on a much larger security dimension. I don't know. Probably most of your audience will know that Quad nations have come together to join an India-US maritime exercise, military exercise. And Malabar, it's called as the Malabar exercise. Malabar exercise has expanded. In 2007, I remember vividly when there was all Quad nations and plus Singapore. Then there was no Quad as such. It got different at that time. But all the 4 Quad nations plus Singapore participated in a Malabar exercise off Chennai in Tamil Nadu, in Bay of Bengal, when there was the UPA government under Manmohan Singh, and the communist parties protested against this. And from the next year onwards, from 2008 onwards, it again became a bilateral between India and US. But today, I think it is the 4th edition where all 4 Quad nations are part of the maritime exercise, and it's getting a security dimension also. Quad is gaining a security dimension, though still they don't talk about it. But essentially, I believe that India can plug into the Quad nations for most of its dependency on China for many of the products that they are looking for, including some of the raw materials that are looking for. I strongly advocate that India should de-link itself from the Chinese economy as much as possible, because if you don't do that, I think it's going to create a lot of mess, not only in the Northeast region for the local businesses, but also for the entire business community in India. It's going to become a mess, and it's going to become a major headache and a challenge. For that reason, I strongly support Quad, and Quad has a major role to play in the Act East policy of India. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bipindra.
Yeah. Mr. Bipindra, I'll be very happy to share with you that our CM has just announced in the previous month that Assam is coming up with its own defense corridor. And I think that would be a major addition to the Quad exercise. Absolutely. And also, yes. Mr. Ujale, we have a skill development university that is coming up just a little ahead of Guwahati. So I think these 2 developments would be groundbreaking for the region.
There have been a lot of positive developments for the northeast region of India
Yes.
in the
Yes.
recent years, which is all welcome, and probably there is more that needs to be done. I'm never satisfied with anything,
Yes.
so there's always more to be done. I'm very what do you call it? I always
And
long for more.
yeah. Especially in Assam, there are a lot of developments happening, like a semiconductor plant, which is coming from Tata Group, and in a very nearby place to Guwahati, and even another IIM is coming up. It's being planned in Assam. So a lot of developments are happening. It's a never-ending discussion. Actually, there are so many aspects that we need to discuss. It's so long, and issues are so critical, and it's a very complex. So for today, we'll try to wind up now, and for next sessions, we'll try to have more bigger panelists, and then invite even representatives from the government side, have more and more discussions, and so that we can highlight very important points and then find out solutions to the issues. So we'll try to do that. For today, thank you so much to all of you for being part of the discussion, and look forward to have you in next sessions, and so that we can have more bigger panel, more insightful discussion next time. Thank you so much. Is there anything someone would like to add lastly?
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, I
Thank you
think.
for thanking me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
for-
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you
It's
so
a pleasure
much.
to be on Nava. It's a pleasure to be on this panel, and Abhijit, Ujali, and Neha. Thank you so much, Sheikh. Thank you for being here.
Always,
It's been a
always a
pleasure.
privilege. Always a privilege to
Yeah,
interact with you. Always, yeah.
I learned a lot from the other panelists, and that's the kind of opportunity that I always look for. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.